Hello, lovely souls. My name is Jackie, and welcome to the RavenRabbit Wellness Studio podcast. I'm an enrolled member of the Washoe Tribe of California, Nevada. I have always been deeply connected to the unseen spiritual world since I was a child. I wouldn't say that my spiritual awakening can be pinpointed to one specific date, time, or event, but rather it was a natural unfolding over my lifetime. And I want to share that journey with you to let you know that your spiritual awakening is divinely guided. If you want help with self-worth and self-doubt, then this is the place for you. I took baby steps to change my life and heal from anxiety, depression, and self-doubt. Ultimately, I built RavenRabbit in my quest to help others like you do the same. I am a metaphysical minister, energy healer, and intuitive coach. In this podcast, I draw on metaphysical principles, I read energy, and I intuitively guide our conversation with the holistic, indigenous, spiritual approach to life, healing, and happiness. Stick around to explore the unseen, navigate metaphysics to live your life to the fullest, be the happiest version of yourself, and to deeply heal from what holds you back. Hello and welcome to the RavenRabbit Wellness Studio podcast. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Jackie Cope, and I am so excited that you're here joining me today as I share a really exciting story that I haven't shared with a lot of people. This is episode 25, and I have titled it, How RavenRabbit Came to Be and How You Can Start the Business of Your Dreams. I haven't really shared a lot on the business side of how I'm doing what I'm doing when it comes to all of my business endeavors, when it comes to writing, my art, education, and my spiritual stuff. So we're going to dive deep into that today. I have a feeling there's going to be quite a few of these episodes because this is going to be way background stuff. How did RavenRabbit even come to be? So before we get started, I'd like to ground us, bring us back to Mother Earth before we have this conversation. And while you start thinking about your business dreams and what you want to accomplish, I want it to be all done in a really good, peaceful place. So, dear Creator, please let me speak the truth, share my story, bring light to others, keep us grounded. Only let the highest and best in to work with us as we mull around our ideas and share our thoughts. And so it is. So thank you for showing up for this. If you're listening to this, I know there's a deep part of you that really wants to own a business, and either you're in the steps of kind of getting there, or you don't even know where to start, or you have a tiny idea. Whatever it is, I know I'll have some stuff here to share with you, because owning a business is constantly learning. No matter where you're at on the path, whether you're experienced or a novice. So, welcome to episode 25, How RavenRabbit Came to Be and How You Can Start the Business of Your Dreams. So I'm going to infuse my little tips throughout the story, and I'll point them out when I say them. So I have to preface this with the first part of how my business came to be. I always wanted to own a business. That is the first part. I think that's most important. I didn't come to this idea later in life. I know some people might have that dream and desire come on later. I didn't have that experience. Ever since I was a young girl, I wanted to own a business. And when I was a teenager, that looked like owning a bakery. That was my idea as a young girl. I used to have this journal and I'd write in it. It was, at the time I didn't know what that was, but I was writing a business plan. I'd write down like what it would look like, what I would serve, how I'd make money, like just I was a teenager. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just knew I needed to have a plan. And so, yeah, I have this little book and it says bakery on it. And it was all of my ideas around that. Because of that, I decided to go to business school. There were some other things I wanted to pursue instead. I didn't get around to those things at that time. So when the college acceptances came, I was accepted to San Diego State University, which I did not think would happen. That's a very good school. And I got in. And I picked business, which is one of the hardest. Well, it's impacted. It's a very impacted program because it's really good. We have great business minds come out of that school. So I always love to talk about it. I love talking business too. So the creator of Jack in the Box, creator of Costco, there's so many good startups that happened from SDSU. So I learned from really great teachers. So going to business school really helped. It also scared me, which is another story for another time, because it did instill some fears in me. But I think that's a good thing, because then it made me, when I finally did do it, where I'm at now, I took those stories very seriously. Business law, business finance, business accounting. I didn't go into it blind. Like, I heard a lot of stories. I got educated on that. And when I got older and I felt like I could handle that information, then I started RavenRabbit. So, preface with, I always wanted to own a business. So I don't know where you're at in your journey. Maybe it was a dream since you were young. Maybe it's a new dream. I'm not sure. But you know. And for me, it was something I always wanted. It has definitely shifted since then. I have no desire to open a bakery now. So even if you did have a dream and you're like, well, I'm not doing the first thing I wanted to do, it's okay. You don't have to do that first thing. I do not want to be a baker. I do not want to wake up when it's still dark outside to cook. I appreciate the people who do that because I love going to a bakery. But that's not what I want to do anymore. But it did get my mind sparked and it did get me going, and that's what I loved when I was younger. Second part of owning RavenRabbit, before getting there, the road there, I dabbled with selling worksheets on something called Teachers Pay Teachers. If you're not in education, you might not know what that is. It is a huge platform online where all the teachers who decide to post, they create original lessons. They make beautiful worksheets, guides, stories. It's all formatted there. It used to be really basic. It was PDFs back then, because that was like 10 years ago. Now it's everything after doing COVID learning. There's PowerPoints, interactive games. There's everything you could think of. And the premise of it was created by a teacher who needed this in their classroom, couldn't find it, made it themselves, and are now sharing it with other teachers. Some things have gotten a little diluted, I think, since then. I'm not sure. But I know from the teachers I follow on there, there's teachers who are working in the classroom and who are also sharing their brilliant lesson plans. It got me really excited. When I came into teaching, we were switching from No Child Left Behind and those standards and shifting to Common Core standards. There was a huge hole in the market for good lessons that aligned with Common Core. And I hit that hole, and I was pretty successful in it. I got a lot of followers, for me, what I think, and I sold quite a bit of worksheets because I was creating stuff that we needed. So it showed me when I started dabbling with Teachers Pay Teachers, I never took it too seriously. It showed me that I had really good ideas. I could fill a market hole because we were missing something. I could think of the solution to it and fulfill it. And it also taught me I can interact with customers because it was an open thing. Like, people can leave you comments, they rate you, they'll email you, they'll request things. So like, I had to start customer interaction, and I was in my early mid-20s at that point and only was going off of what I've learned in business school, in HR and in management, of how to do customer care. So it also taught me all of that and how to be professional. I did quite well with that. My Teachers Pay Teacher store is still running. I post a very few things now. So if you are a teacher, you are interested, the Teachers Pay Teachers account is shifting to align with RavenRabbit at this point. So I'm doing more multicultural, diverse lessons because that's a huge market hole right now too. We don't have indigenous lessons by indigenous teachers in the classroom on Teachers Pay Teachers. There's very few. So if you're interested in that, you can check that out. I have a few. So dabbling with worksheets and selling in an online forum, it taught me, here's my little piece of advice for you. Pursue your hobbies and things that you're good at. They could be the basis of your business one day. So if you're that type of person who doesn't know what kind of business you want to own yet, you just know you want one, start pursuing your hobbies. Start pursuing things that you love. I love lesson planning. I could never go wrong with it. You sit me down with a book and tell me to lesson plan, I'm going to have fun. That's fun to me. And it's the basis of part of my business now. Being able to lesson plan and teach is all connects back to how I coach, life coach, spiritual coach, and I'm also been working on human rights and justice training as well, because there's a huge basis of learning within my program at RavenRabbit. The next thing I did in my mid-20s, I kind of done it in college, but actually pursued it later, is I wrote a children's book. I was mid-20s at this point. I took it seriously. I'm like, I wrote this really good story. I'm going to send it out to publishers. And working with teachers pay teachers and then to be a published author, it was all just coming together. That taught me I worked with a publisher very well, and I work with an editor very well. That I say that because there's a lot of criticism within that. And there's a difference between constructive criticism and negative. So I had a very constructive experience. My editor made me so much better. So that taught me I can take constructive criticism and I can apply it and I could be better. So writing my children's book was a huge step into where I'm at with RavenRabbit now. I had fun sharing my creativity with others. I was able to apply to 2 book awards with that book, and I won both. And it was just such an exciting time to be so young. I started at 24, 25. It was published by 26, and I had won 2 book awards by 26. I was just over the moon with that. That was very exciting. And that taught me, here's the thing I want you to think about with your business, is take on creative endeavors. Business is about fulfilling a need that is not being addressed by the current market. If you don't know what to do with your business, think about stuff you've done to make your life easier, better, more efficient. It could be something that's missing in the market that we all need access to and that you could fill. My creativity showed me that I can address a current market need. Again, when you talk about indigenous matters, at that time, there's indigenous writers and stuff, but because this was 10 years ago, we were really stuck in Native inspired stories. So that means Native people exist and anybody would just write about them and it would just be inspired by Natives. What we were missing in the market was an inspired Native writing the story. So we really need indigenous folks writing their stories and their dreams and what comes to them. And then that needs to be on the market so that we're actually buying and consuming creative work that is by a Native person. So that's the hole in the market. Since that 10 years ago, we have definitely made huge strides in the publishing industry, especially the children's book industry, where we're starting to get an abundance of books by Native authors, and it's so exciting. So something I'm always working on. I always have little stories in my head. I'm writing them down. That one happened to come of it. That one, if you're interested in, is called Just Indian. It's on Amazon, but it's also with my publisher, Cute by Design. It's better to buy from them because then they can keep their data of how our books are doing, because it's a small publisher. So RavenRabbit also came to be from trusting my gut and pursuing something really big like that, and I did it. Another thing that really helped me in my creative endeavors, creative endeavors too, and starting RavenRabbit, was I took on leadership roles at work. So even though I'm talking about all this stuff, the entire time I've been a teacher since I was 22 years old. I finished my degree early and I got into the classroom. So I'm working full time as I'm doing these things. That's important to bring up too. There's this back and forth between you need to drop everything you're doing and pursue your dream full time, or else it'll never come to be, or you can do it like how I have. You can do your full-time business, and when it's time to transition, you'll know the right time. You'll have a number. Vasheen from Mind Valley talks about that. And then you can switch from doing your full-time job and your business to just doing your business. For me, I don't know what will happen, because my full-time job aligns with what I do in my business. So I don't feel like I'm doing two separate things. For some people, in their case, they might be completely different. So it would make sense. But I took on leadership roles at work. So if you are doing your regular 9-to-5 full-time job, take on leadership roles. You are going to learn so much. So I did this throughout my 20s, taking on leadership roles, and progressively gained more responsibility. It started with me being the lead teacher for my kindergarten through second grade team. With that, I had to run meetings, analyze the theories we were using at the time, like how we collect data, how we analyze that data, make that accessible to everybody. Think about my teachers who are sitting in my room and think, how do they learn? So I'm no longer just thinking about what do my kindergartners need to know and how do they learn? I'm also thinking about my teachers and what's going to make them more effective. So taking on that leadership role really made me grow. I became the union rep after that. I was lead teacher for a long time. Then I also added on being the union rep. So I got really into the political side of teaching. That led me to become a human rights cadre trainer for the California Teachers Association. That was an amazing experience and taught me a ton. That's being integrated into my business now. There are some business coaches out there who are teaching how to decolonize your coaching business, and that's so important. I fortunately learned a lot of that stuff through being a human rights trainer. And I'm now taking that information, compiling it, and making it into a course to live on RavenRabbit so that you can do those things. And it helped build my business to be more equitable from the get-go. So I took on that leadership role. With the human rights cadre trainer, I was then sent out to train other teachers. So that led to my published book I have now. My most current published book is Hey Teacher, Get in Focus. That is a book to help teachers pursue their professional development needs. So I learned through taking on my leadership roles as a lead teacher and human rights trainer. I love teaching teachers. I love helping them in any way I can. So the point of all of this is take on leadership roles to learn, gain confidence, and practice. If anything with that, even if you really dislike your job right now and you feel like you're not where you're supposed to be, if anything, you will learn what not to do. I have a long list of those from leaders I've dealt with. And it always teaches me, and I'll say it out loud, I need to start writing them down. And remember, I will never treat somebody like that. I will never say something like that. I will not. The list goes on and on. So even if you're having a bad experience, you could really turn it into a positive and be like, that just showed me what I will never do. I have to do the opposite. Then you have to search for what that opposite is, because sometimes you think, sometimes it's hard to think of what would you do instead? What would you do if you were in their position? Sometimes that answer is easy. Sometimes that answer is hard. So take on leadership roles, whether it aligns with your ultimate business goal or not. You're going to learn so much about yourself that will, again, serve you later on when you really hit the ground running with your business. And the next biggest thing that really helped my business, this is more industry specific, but I think it could really help any industry, is I dove really deep into my spiritual journey in 2019. I'd been doing all of those things throughout my 20s. The things I just told you. That was all of my early 20s, all of it. And in 2018, in my personal life, I had a hard time with getting divorced. I had a lot of things fall apart. I felt like everything was falling apart. And I really dove deep into my spiritual journey. And this is where RavenRabbit really started to come together for me. But that's because my business in specific is also a spiritual business. But even if my business weren't a spiritual business, I think that being on your spiritual journey is going to serve you in the long run. whether you're selling and designing t-shirts, jewelry, any of that, because you're going to have a higher guidance that's then going to help you. So in 2018, I started my yoga certificate. Oh, no, it wasn't 2018. It was 2021. But 2018, I've shared here before, I started therapy. I started getting really serious about spiritual matters. And then it led me to finding my yoga certificate, which I did in 2021. And I finished it in 2022. So now we're starting to get into my 30s, early 30s. Loved my yoga certificate. It opened me up so much. Yoga is something I've always done. And it just made me have a deeper connection to myself. From there, I went to metaphysical schooling. And I started that at the end of 2022. And I finished that in the summer of 2023. So I was doing that while I was operating my yoga studio in town. And I'm still working to continue that work. I'm very close to finishing my master's in metaphysics. Then I'll go on to my doctorates. So diving deep into my spiritual journey, it helped me get deeply connected with myself. So you need to do that too. Get deeply connected with yourself. So your intuition and higher self is always guiding you rather than your ego. I think if we're using our ego to drive our business, we might have success. It could be short term. It could run its course and then be over and you have to think of the next thing. I think if we separate from the ego and you have your higher self, you might go off. You could start anyway. It might take a long time to kick off and get going. It might not. You might hit the market spot sweet and hit it big at the beginning. But either way, whether it takes a while or not, I think you're going to have a more sustainable practice to continue to go, because that's what's going to matter in the long run. So get deeply connected with yourself, separate from that ego, and have your higher self guide you so that your business plan and your business model will then be sustainable. So now I want to switch gears into talking about how RavenRabbit came to be when I officially started making RavenRabbit LLC. So all of that was everything leading to that moment. So when I finally decided to start my business, I was pretty sick in December. I had like a sore throat and I was a teacher and I don't leave campus, but I was like, I have to go get cough drops or I'm not going to make it through the day. So I went to town to the pharmacy to get cough drops. And on my way in there, you walk past this little space and it said for rent. And I looked inside of it and I was like, that's the location, that's it. I really want to pursue this business and see where it takes me. And I went home that evening, told my partner the space I'd found. We drove up there, we checked it out, we liked it, we knew we could do something with it. And so I found a little studio, just happened upon it in my time of being sick and leaving campus and getting out of my norm. And that was late December. I got in contact with the landlord and I started the lease in January of 2022. So that was my physical location. We had done a few like pop-up craft fairs because I do art, and those were fun and it was starting to really come together. I had a logo, did a few craft fairs, was just about done with my yoga certificate. I knew if I signed this lease, I would do like my little final exams I needed to do and finish that up so I could do yoga at the studio. And that's exactly what I did. So while I was renovating it with my partner, new floors, new paint, basic stuff. While we were doing that, I finalized everything with my yoga certificate, and at the same time in January, I filed for all of the normal things. So for me, when I started my business, I filed for articles of organization for an LLC in California. Something that you have to do. If you're going to do an LLC, it's a limited liability company. I knew always, because like I said, business school gave me some fears, which were good fears of like being rational and doing savvy business. So to separate myself from the business, I filed for my LLC. I obtained a seller's permit because I knew with continued craft fairs and having a storefront in this little studio that I would be selling goods. So I got a permit for that. I got an entity identification number at the same time. So you need a tax number for your business to separate me from the business. That was filed in January. And I also obtained a insurance for the studio because I was in a physical space, and for myself as a yoga instructor. So those were some very paperwork things I had to do if I wanted to be operating legally and with sound mind after taking business law classes and stuff. So that was all done in January. Mind you, I still teach and work full time as well. So as I did that, I was like, this business is really shaping, really forming. I have my art that I sell, such as my earrings, my paintings, my jewelry, my healing kits with crystals and such. And I was like, I need to make a vision. So I wrote a vision for my company so that my work would always be driven by higher purpose and that everything would be connected, because I knew with my business I wasn't just going to deliver one thing. I don't want you to come to my storefront and only get one thing. I want you to see all of me and all of my talents. I'm a multifaceted person. There's so many things that go on. So with that vision, I was like, I want to make sure though that everything is connected. So it's on my website, my vision. I think it's important for business owners to do that. I put mine up on the website because the education side of me wants to show people how and what to expect. This could just be internal things for you as well. Typically, companies will share a mission and vision. So my vision for RavenRabbit: an indigenous, spiritual, and holistic approach to life, healing, and happiness. I knew all of the things I was doing connected all back to that. When I do art, I feel full of life. I feel like I'm healing something, and I feel happy. That's where my art and jewelry come in. When I do my spiritual coaching, I'm personally fulfilled in life. It's very healing to me to share and happiness. But on the other side, my client is also getting that. They're approaching their life healing and happiness through a lens that maybe they would have never had before, because it is an indigenous, spiritual, holistic approach, not typically what you find in the self-help spiritual world. So all of it started to become connected. Now, a vision, from what I saw in business school, the vision is your large overall thing. It's not detailed. It's the big idea. After that comes the mission, so you get more detailed. My mission to this is, through the use of spiritual products and customized services, RavenRabbit's mission is to acknowledge the complexities of life and each client we serve. Products and services are created from a spiritual, indigenous approach and aim to promote healing and happiness. So again, I found that hole in the market. I, as myself as a native entrepreneur, there's not a lot of voices out there. I have found lots. They're there, but there's not an abundance of them. They're not everywhere. You have to go searching for them. So I wanted to make sure all my products and services have that spiritual, indigenous approach to it. Because again, we're trying to decenter whiteness and we're trying to decolonize. And like I told you, it's embedded from the beginning that decolonization and dismantling white supremacy is built within my business. It's right there in the vision and the mission. So we're stepping away from those things. My mission then led to when I do this work, how should that work be conducted? How do I hold myself accountable? Which led me to write intentions. This was not something I was taught in business school. It's something I came about later myself, but that comes from the spiritual side, from working through my metaphysics degree. I was like, I want to make sure everything I do has the right intention behind it, so that always, no matter what, everything I'm doing is filled with light, love, spirituality, and the right message. I don't want to just do things out of ego, or this business is doing that, so I'm going to do it. Or I really like that, so I'm going to do it. I need to like it, and it also needs to be aligned. and what intentions was I holding while I created it. So I have 4 intentions for RavenRabbit at this moment. 1, my biggest intention is to spread happiness with meaningful products and services. In a consumer capitalistic society, we have so much stuff around us. It's very overwhelming. We could have so many things. So with the things that I'm going to add, I don't want to just add to the pile. I want to make sure it's spreading happiness. That's my intention. Number 2, take a spiritual indigenous approach when creating products and services. So I'm trying to find a spiritual and indigenous way to do the things I love. How would my family approve things being done, and how are things? It's kind of the ethical talk, but different, because it would be an indigenous way of ethics. What would be ethical for me to do when I create my products and services? So, like I've said before, when I'm sourcing like crystals, I want to make sure I'm working with a small business that's working with ethical minds. That's an indigenous approach. How are we treating the land? There's cheaper ways to go. I could just go on Amazon, bulk crystals. If you type that in, you're going to get really cheap stuff. Great for bottom line, great for capitalistic business practices, but that does not align with my intentions. I need to make sure I'm finding things ethically and indigenously supplied and sourced. And this also comes down to the talk of where we get our plant medicine, sage, tobacco, those types of things. Ideally, in the long run, when my business is really set up, I'll be growing my own sage. Right now, I'm just trying to source it from an indigenous farmer and owner. So, or an indigenous business. So right now with my tobacco, I don't sell tobacco or anything, but for my use, because I use it to clear my space as I'm making things. My tobacco comes from the local casino. They source a American Indian owned tobacco company. And I just buy a big old bag, bulk, loose tobacco. And then that way I know it was grown by natives, sourced, and it's their business and I'm supporting them. And that's just for me, because also when I'm creating these products, I'm not just manufacturing in a huge thing when I make my earrings. I'm clearing my space with sacred medicine. I'm clearing myself so that anything that's going on in my life doesn't transfer to these products that I'm making. So having that very spiritual indigenous approach when I'm doing my work. Same thing when I'm creating my classes. I've looked online. What's a spiritual indigenous approach to teaching this course, to sharing this information? Excuse me. Number 3, my next attention. To aid in the healing process through meaningful products and services. So, to aid is important. What I learned through my metaphysics program is to not be so much like the healer, the one, all of the knowing. I'm just to aid that process. Ultimately, each of my customers and clients is in charge of their own healing process, and they have the power and the medicine to do that for themselves. I'm here to aid that process. If you need help, if you need support, you're not going to come to me for healing to occur. I don't have that in me. That's a very indigenous approach. We can do steps, we can do techniques, we can do all of these things, and I can teach you how to do energy healing, but I'm here to aid you in that process on your path. So, same thing with my products. I want to align you with the right products as well. And last one, number 4, to look at our clients with a holistic indigenous approach and recognize the complexity of each human being in order to tailor products and services just for them. This is what's missing in the market. In capitalistic society, everything's mass produced. We don't think about the complexities of each human with our products. That makes me think of like the fashion industry, how it's not always inclusive, and we have brands out there trying to make them inclusive. Same thing here. As an educator, fashion is, whether the sizing and culture and all of that's inclusive. With education, it's, we don't all learn the same. I can't just write one thing and say, okay, anyone who picks up this book or takes this course will absolutely know this. I need to think of different ways and tailor it just so it's accessible to all. And will I always hit them? No, but I will. My intention is to try and to make sure that I understand the complexity of each human being with all my products and services. What I might do for one client could look different for another client. Same thing with education consulting that I do. What might work for one school or one teacher might not work for another, and it's okay to adjust. So those are my intentions that I came up with. So what we've talked about, I did paperwork to get my business organized legally through my state. You need to think about what state you're in and start going through those processes. I wrote myself a mission, vision, and intentions. The work that I do is multifaceted. I don't deliver just one thing. So everything must be aligned with that vision, mission, and intentions for me to pursue it within the company storefront. Because I do lots of things. Not everything that I do makes it to the storefront. For example, I like to wood burn. That's just something for me for fun right now on the side. It's not so much aligned right now with what I'm doing, such as my jewelry making. So just making sure that what I pursue, I'm not trying to do everything I think I'm good at or like doing, but the things that I'm really good at doing, I do make sure they align with that, and then they come to the storefront. Everything that I did in the past as a younger person led to this all coming together. As a child, I was always creative. I always painted, crafted. I learned how to craft from my mom, paint from my grandma. Her grandfather was a painter. The art side was always there, was something I was always dabbling in. I used to write in my diary all the time. That wasn't so much modeled to me by somebody in particular. That's just something I did. Always writing little stories, little songs, writing in my journal. Constantly wrote. So to write a children's book later on down the line aligns with what I always did as a kid. And all of it led to me writing the books that I do have published. So the reason I share that is because there's no starting point and then there's really no ending point. The process is not linear as you develop your business. Even if it never makes it to the storefront, it still is going to teach you a valuable lesson. So everything I put my mind to, it helped me learn, create, develop, and it serves me in some capacity in running my business now. So like I was saying, I was writing, I was doing art. It all led to the business forming. When I was in business school, I remember the professor that I had in entrepreneurship, we went to the copyright website. We did little mock things. We practiced, look at the application. What does it expect of you? Did I copyright anything at that moment when I was 20 years old? No. I didn't copyright anything until I got into my late 20s. So, even if I didn't use it right there at that moment, it doesn't mean it's not going to turn around and serve me 10, 20, 30 years from now. So I want to talk about some of my learning curves I've had with the very business side of starting my business. I was doing craft fairs. I did not find those aligning with making me happy. They're, for me, draining. Being a spiritual energy person, interacting like that for 8 or more hours all day in a front like that was really difficult. So I was like, how can I conserve my energy and put passion into my art, but while still being able to sell? So I started looking for how to make an online storefront. I found Shopify, loved it. So I also want to talk about how some things appear to be easy while you're doing them, and some of them start to come out as barriers. I've run into both. For me, Shopify was both. Opening it, starting it, making my little website easy. Doing the little nuances within it to make it really work for me, harder. You got to watch videos, read blogs, learn how others are doing it, and start applying that to your account. So every time I've logged into Shopify, maybe I didn't actually mark anything off of my list of what I accomplished, but I was learning something, such as how to add a product, how to upload photos, how does that look on my storefront, how can I manipulate my storefront to be more pleasing to the eye, and everything started coming together. Within Shopify, there's a bunch of apps to help you with your services, and I started looking into those. First was an email app so that I can email my subscribers and keep in contact, playing with that. How do you make a template for that? So all of these steps have learning curves, and sometimes these learning curves would hold me back for a while because I'd be like, oh, I don't know how to do that yet. I have to watch a video. I have to learn. Or I've tried and it didn't work right, so I got to try again. So for some people, that just might be overwhelming and you might call it quits. I say just keep going. You don't have to always mark something off of a list. With that Shopify account, I think it's so powerful. There's always something new to be learning. I've only learned 3 apps. The email subscription one. I learned how to do print on demand, which now I have my logo on merchandise, which is so exciting to me. And I also have made some custom t-shirts to go along with my spiritual side. And the last one that I've been practicing using and just started is online learning through Shopify. There are other accounts out there that have online learning down to a T, but they were a big investment. I was looking for something that was not a big investment and something that kept it at home in Shopify, because I didn't want to have a bunch of logins and try to remember where things were housed. So my learning, you go onto my account, RavenRabbit.com, which is a Shopify storefront. You will find my courses. You can take my courses right in there when you're on my Shopify page. And I love that. I love the streamline. So then learning how to build a course within there. I know from my curriculum doctorates, I know how to build a course. I know what objectives to go over, all of that. What I needed to learn was how do I format it. Basically, they do it all for you, but the text code behind it to make it look pretty in the classroom storefront when you're in it and in my online class. Learning curve, big time. I had to learn how to upload everything and had limits to how I wanted to teach, which I think were good parameters. If I wanted to store my files, my videos, in this particular account, it had to be 10 minutes or less. And at first I was like, that's going to be a setback. I'm a teacher. I could talk forever. We got to get to the point, or we got to discover everything and then get to the point. The 10-minute thing has made me get to the point. And I'm like, that really helps with our learners who are busy, who have focus needs, who just want to get the basic information and then do their own research. But I have many of them, so you can keep going. I don't just have one 10-minute video within a class, but I make it bite-sized, which I think is more accessible. So using your Shopify to make everything accessible and just continue to learn and trial and error. So far I've done 2 courses that are up live on there. There's a metaphysical course and there's an intuition course, manifestation I mean, and there's some more coming to that, and I've been working on social justice courses as well. The other thing that was a big learning curve in my business was learning how to utilize Amazon KDP self-publishing. And I would say lots of things led to that coming together. First, I had to have something that I wrote that I have to say, which I do as a writer. Then I needed to know some business background about copywriting my work and making sure it's protected. I had a learning curve through that. And then how to just use the platform in itself. What does it want from me? This came more into book formatting, formatting your manuscript, all of the things I have not thought about as a writer. Before I just wrote the paper, wrote what I wanted to say, and I sent it to my publisher. And I didn't think anything beyond that. Maybe some illustration notes. But with doing it myself, I was like, oh, I have to think about the margins. what size it is, what font to use. So, big difference. And all of it has come together. The artwork I did, what's visually pleasing for a book. It all comes together. So I do not let all these learning curves put me at a complete stop. They will slow me down, and I have to take the steps necessary to learn what to do next. So some of those paths are more resistant than others. Some things have taken a long time to get there. It didn't just, I clicked it, read it, understood it, and did it. And others did just come together a little bit easier, a little smoother, I guess you'd say, than some of those harder things. So think about your business journey. Think about where you're at, whether you have a concept in your mind, if you're already a practicing entrepreneur, what you're doing. The biggest thing is, don't stop. I know you might be at a point where it's like, well, I don't even know what to do. When I get to that point, I lean back onto the universe and making sure all my channels are open. Because I've been in this balance lately of chasing versus manifesting versus letting what comes come. So chasing has been hard for me because as an entrepreneur and your ego comes through, you want to chase down your dreams and desires. Capitalism tells you the American dream, oh, you're going to get your white picket fence dream, you're going to get the American dream, but you got to work for it. That doesn't align with an indigenous approach. That doesn't align with a holistic approach. There is a degree of chasing, though, that I think needs to be executed. And I wouldn't call it chasing, I would call it following through. When something has presented itself to you, when you have that opportunity arise, there's going to be a piece of you that you need to do some work. It's not just going to fall into your lap. You're going to have to read, study, execute some projects, produce something, which I would not categorize as chasing. You can produce and show what you're capable of and do. Then the other part is manifesting. I have a whole thing on that, a whole course. You're going to need to manifest. You're going to need to speak these things into existence and happen. Because again, I don't think they're just going to magically appear and to be everything you wanted them to be and run smoothly. You're going to need to do some work. Some great things will happen, but that's all they'll be, the one great thing. And then there's the side of allowing things to just come and to just be. So that's the space I'm kind of in right now. I've done all this background work. I've studied, I've read, I've really learned. Now I'm in this mass production phase that I've been in where I'm putting it all together. It's coming through as art, classes, books. I'm creating this abundance of resource. And now I'm at the phase where I need to let those opportunities come now with it. And so it turns into a little bit of a waiting game. The right business partners will come along, the right customers will come along, the right listeners on this podcast will come along. And without chasing. Just for me exerting the amount of work that's appropriate and with the right intentions of why I'm even doing what I'm doing and through my manifestations. So that's how RavenRabbit came to be. That's some parts that I've not really shared about, and I definitely have more to say about that whole process. So if you're on your entrepreneurial journey, I'd love to hear about it, share about it. If somebody else is on their entrepreneurship journey, you could send them this podcast. Maybe they'll get some good ideas out of it. And we just got to keep collaborating together and keep letting the abundance and light all flow to us. Realize there's going to be so many hard moments, but each of those hard moments is going to teach us something and help us develop something. So, thank you for listening today. Share this podcast. If you want to learn more about me and my services, go onto my website, any of my social medias, and I'd love to connect with you. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you for listening. Expand the life, healing, and happiness of others in your field by sharing this episode. You can get more of my content and other helpful tips by following RavenRabbit LLC on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Be sure to comment on Spotify and answer the episode's question so I can keep creating content you love and desire. Thank you so much.